From Lagos, the nation's commercial capital, this is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Millicent Walker.
Hello and welcome. Tonight, Supreme Court of Nigeria affirms Adeleke as validly elected governor of Osun State as President Muhammadu Buhari charges residents of the state to support Governor Adeleke towards actualizing his plans and aspirations for the state. All Progressives Congress and the President-elect asked Presidential Election Tribunal to dismiss the petitions filed by the APM and the PDP as the tribunal adjourns pre-hearing for both petitions till May 11. Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo calls for more investment in the power. Adeleke as the governor of Osun State. The Apex Court dismissed the appeal by the former governor of the state and APC candidate in the July 2022 election, Mr. Oyetola, challenging the election of Governor Adeleke. The judgment, which was read by Justice Emmanuel Agim, was affirmed by other members of the five-man panel. Our correspondent Emperor Simon reports.
Nigeria's Apex Court takes center stage as the July 16, 2022 Osun governorship election is about to be laid to rest. Supporters of Governor Adeleke of Osun State and Mr. Adegboyega Oyetola arrived at court ahead of the scheduled time for the delivery of the judgment. Mr. Oyetola is challenging the election of Governor Adeleke on two grounds. First, he alleges overvoting in over 700 polling units across 10 local government areas of the state during the July 16, 2022 Osun governorship election. He also alleges that Governor Adeleke had made false claim about his education status to the Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) prior to the election. However, the Supreme Court, in a judgment read by Justice Emmanuel Agim, said it found no reason to set aside the verdict of the Court of Appeal, which upheld Governor Adeleke's victory at the polls. The five-man panel of justices said Mr. Oyetola failed to produce any bimodal voters accreditation system (BVAS) to prove his allegation. The Apex Court ruled that nothing in either the Electoral Act or Regulations 18 to 23 of the INEC's guidelines made it mandatory for presiding officers in an election to transmit by BVAS the number of accredited voters in each polling unit to the back-end server. On the educational qualification of Governor Adeleke, the court also held that the appellant failed to prove his case. The judgment of the court is received with excitement by supporters of Governor Adeleke.
My client, Governor Adeleke, went all out to ensure that he secured the victory once again after what happened 4 years ago. And then the people gave him the mandate to rule. And that is why it's commendable that by the grace of God that we're able to defend that mandate.
The Supreme Court has, through this case, settled a lot of issues that will come before ongoing tribunals and courts.
The counsel to Mr. Oyetola is not available to speak on the judgment. Nevertheless, the coast is now clear for Governor Adeleke, and the people of Osun State are waiting to see how much progress his administration will bring to the state. Emperor Simon, Channels Television News.
And in a swift reaction, Governor Adeleke hailed the Supreme Court's judgment validating his election. He described the outcome as historic and a landmark development in the history of Osun politics. Addressing journalists in his country home in Ede, Governor Adeleke says now that the distraction is over, he can now concentrate more on governance.
They ain't seen nothing yet. We have a lot of goodies in stock for our lovely Osun people. Even though there was little distraction, we were focused. You journalists can testify to our 100 days in office. I mean, you have seen it all. You went with me, you worked with me, you saw what we have done. And we are not, work is still going, despite the fact of little distraction. Now there's no distraction again. We have all our agenda, our 5-point agenda in the making. You just wait and see. My message is that there's no winner, there's no vanquish. So everybody should come together now that everything is over now. Let's come together and work together and make us great again.
The governor and his family celebrating the victory with songs and dance. And more of his supporters were not left out of the excitement as they were seen dancing. Well, still on the Supreme Court verdict on the Osun governorship election, President Muhammadu Buhari is calling on the indigents and residents of the state to support the governor in order to achieve his goals and aspirations for the Osun state and Osun people. In a statement by the presidential spokesman, Mr. Femi Adesina, President Buhari reminded the political class and their supporters that the main task at hand is to make the people feel the impact of good governance, where a prosperous, peaceful and stable Osun is guaranteed. In his words, elections should be seen as a path to an end, which is the progress of the people in a peaceful environment rather than on ending bickering. This is the time for inclusion and harmony in the state at the end of litigation. President Buhari is also thanking the people of Osun for contributing immensely to the development of the nation, particularly through the state's rich cultural heritage, the several historic sites and tourist attractions, including the Osun Osogbo Sacred Grove, which is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Well, staying with election tribunals, the Presidential Election Petition Tribunal has adjourned pre-hearing in the petitions filed by the People's Democratic Party, PDP, and the Allied People's Movement, APM, to the 11th of May. Adjourning the petitions, the chairman of the panel, Justice Haruna Semani, asked the parties to sort out and agree on all documents they intend to tender during the hearing for determination to avoid duplication. Our judiciary correspondent Emanuela Ekele has more.
It's the second day in the pre-hearing of petitions at the Presidential Election Tribunal. 2 cases are slated for hearing, one from the People's Democratic Party, PDP, and the other from the Allied People's Movement, APM. The courtroom, as expected, is full to its capacity with majorly lawyers and some members of the political parties involved in the case. First is the petition of the APM, and the counsel to the party, Mr. Suleiman Abubakar, told the court that they have filed a pre-hearing information sheet and have adopted the answers therein. However, in their separate motions on notice, the counsels for the All Progressives Congress and Mr. Tinubu, Mr. Lateef Fagbemi, and Mr. Akin Olujimi asked the tribunal to dismiss the petition as they consider it as incompetent. For the petition by the PDP, the counsel to Mr. Atiku Abubakar, Mr. Chris Uche, wanted the court to hear the application for a live broadcast of the court's proceedings. However, the chairman of the tribunal declined, stating that it will be heard alongside other applications on the next adjourned date. Counsel to Mr. Tinubu says they have just been served and are taking steps to respond within the time permitted on the issue of broadcast. While the counsel to the APC, Mr. Lateef Fagbemi, filed 2 applications seeking the dismissal of the petition.
We also brought up the issue of the motion on notice which we filed and which we served on all the parties in the case. And that is the motion for the live televising of the proceedings in this case, because we consider these proceedings very, very critical and important to the nation, one in which every Nigerian is a stakeholder. So this motion will come up perhaps on Thursday when this matter is adjourned to. It's been expected that the other parties will file their responses.
Pre-hearing continues today with the application by Atiku of the PDP, forming the main highlight of the day's proceedings. He's asking that the court allowed cameras be allowed into the courtroom for live telecast. His petition and that of the APM will come up on Thursday, May 11th, as continuation for hearing. Emanuela Ekele, Channels Television News.
Well, staying with the judiciary and a win for women, Adamawa State now has its first female chief judge since the creation of the state in 1991. Justice Hafsat Abdurrahman was sworn in by Governor Umaru Fintiri at the state capital, Yola. Speaking at the swearing-in ceremony, the governor appeals to the judges to work hard and protect the image of the judiciary as it remains the last hope of the common man.
Gathered in this hall, friends, colleagues, family members and other stakeholders from the judiciary and society and officials of the Adamawa State government for the swearing-in of a new chief judge of Adamawa State, Justice Hafsat Abdurrahman.
Of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So help me God. So help me God.
Now empowered by law as the new chief judge, Justice Hafsat Abdurrahman swears in the Grand Qadi and the President of the Customary Court of Appeal. Governor Fintiri appeals to the judicial officers to protect the image of the judiciary, which he describes as the last hope of the common man.
The judiciary is the last line of defense in any constitutional democracy, and there must never be a time when citizens begin to harbor any suspicion that the judiciary is captured. Under no circumstances should it falter. The integrity of the justice system and the independence of the judiciary can never be compromised under any circumstance. Come what may, you must remain strong and resilient and be steadfast in upholding the rule of law. While you cannot control the words or actions of some courters who are bent on tarnishing or destroying the image of the judiciary, it is within your control to ensure that no one meddles in your affairs. In other words, there can be no interference in the judiciary if the judges do not allow that to happen.
The chief judge of Adamawa State, who spoke on behalf of the other judges, promises to promote justice and equity.
I and my colleagues pledge to do our best in promoting the cause of justice in the state in accordance with the dictates of the judicial and the just society. I must also acknowledge the immense contribution of the present administration to the growth of the judiciary in the state. It is on record that for the year 2020 to date, 10 High Court judges, 3 judges of the State Sharia Court of Appeal, and 3 judges of the State Personal Court of Appeal were appointed to meet the manpower needs of the superior courts of the state.
This is the first time that Adamawa State will be having a female as a chief judge since its creation over 30 years ago.
In part 2 after the break, Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo calls for more investment in the power sector as he commissions the 240 megawatts AFAM 3 project in Rivers State. That's in a moment. Do join us again.
It hurts so bad it makes you miss school. Even football.
But we prevent cavities before they form with Colgate. Colgate locks calcium in.
Keeps cavities out.
Good morning.
My life is a whole lot easier now, even when I'm working from home. I still get everything done.
Workout track.
And faster too. Guys, I'll make my decision and get back to you. I take my meetings uninterrupted. Video call Catherine.
Calling Catherine.
Check in with Bay. No cracks. Go, go, go! Behind you, behind you! And when it's time to bond with my friends across the globe, I connect seamlessly, all thanks to my Airtel router.
Delivery is here.
Thank you. Be like me. Stay connected always with the Airtel home broadband.
Who are you talking to?
It's nothing.
You're talking to me?
No.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
Cover with Astamin, a blend of amino acids and multivitamins.
Savlon Antiseptic Liquid kills over 99.9% of germs on your skin, leaving you free to live more. And it's formulated by Johnson & Johnson to keep you and your family protected. Savlon, love the feeling.
Filed by the APM and the PDP as the tribunal adjourns pre-hearing for both petitions till May 11. Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo calls for more investment in the power sector as he commissions the 240 megawatts AFAM 3.
Hello, Millicent. Let's go to the National Assembly, The President of the Senate, Ahmed Lawan, and Speaker of the House of Representatives, Femi Gbajabiamila, say the 9th National Assembly has performed far better than the previous assemblies. The two lawmakers gave their assessment at the welcome dinner organized by the National Assembly leadership and the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies for the incoming lawmakers. They urged the elected federal lawmakers to consolidate on the achievements of the 9th Assembly.
This is a welcome dinner organized by the National Assembly leadership and the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies for senators and honorable members-elect of the 10th National Assembly. Present at the event are principal officers of the 9th National Assembly and the management of the National Institute for Legislative and Democratic Studies, amongst others. The Senate President, Ahmed Lawan, gave an account of how the 9th National Assembly performed in the interest of the country. He says a total of 104 bills were forwarded for assent to President Muhammadu Buhari.
As of July 2022, a total of 874 bills were introduced in the Senate, out of which 162 were passed. Remarkably, 104 bills of the 9th Senate have been passed and assented to by President Muhammadu Buhari, making this significantly higher than those of previous assemblies.
The Speaker of the House of Representatives laments the rubber stamp label on the 9th Assembly by some Nigerians. He describes it as a misconception of the relationship with the executive.
This 9th Assembly has often been, unfortunately, criticized and labeled a rubber stamp assembly. I shudder sometimes when I hear it. Sometimes I laugh. Sometimes I just wonder whether people really do follow proceedings of the National Assembly. I want people to do their research. Being rubber stamp has become suddenly a romantic language to use to describe the 9th House of Representatives. I have said earlier in my presentation or in my speech that you are elected not to come head to head or conflict with the executive, but to complement the executive for the greater good of the people that we represent.
The Director General of NILDS urges the new legislators-elect to get acquainted with legislative proceedings.
I encourage you all, therefore, members-elect, to take full advantage of the experienced faculty and resource person provided at this induction to prepare themselves for the task ahead.
The induction ceremony for the legislators-elect is designed to last the whole week and will include workshops and other activities to help the lawmakers prepare to serve their constituencies and the nation.
National assets play a crucial role in any nation's development, and they must be protected at all times. These are the words of the Minister of Interior, Mr. Rauf Aregbesola. The Interior Minister, who was speaking at a meeting on the protection of national assets, expressed his concern over the huge losses the nation has experienced owing to insecurity, vandalism, militancy, and other vices.
The Minister of Interior, Mr. Rauf Aregbesola, is leading heads of security agencies to a meeting on the validation of the draft copy of the Critical National Asset and Infrastructure National Protection and Policy Strategy. The aim of the exercise is to further enhance the security of the nation's critical assets and infrastructure to boost the economy in line with the policy thrust of President Muhammadu Buhari's administration.
We are taking bold steps to reform the legal and policy structures for the protection of Sinai in alignment with our national developmental aspirations, global trends, and good practices under our reform project tagged Sinai Strategic Protection Policy Reform Program, SPPRP.
The document outlines the national security concerns of the country and corresponding strategies to deal with them, following the fact that an estimated $200 billion had been lost between 1999 to date owing to terrorism, insurgency, banditry, and militancy.
We are all here to brainstorm on what the policy on critical national asset protection, what should be the policy and how must it affect us as individual agencies. So at the end of the day, what matters is the role we play and the role we want others to play in the protection of these assets.
The draft Critical National Asset and Infrastructure document is being produced, and it has identified and sectorized Nigeria's critical national assets and infrastructure domain into 17 sectors. It also prioritized their protection into 3 broad areas, which are lifeline, life support, and life-enhancing sector groups. The document that is being validated today explains in detail how to achieve the prioritized protection of our critical national assets and infrastructure.
The nation's assets play a critical role in her development. Their destruction is likely to have a debilitating impact on security, the economy, health, education, and the agricultural sectors.
The security now, the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Farouk Yahaya, is pledging to ensure increased capacity building for officers of the Nigerian Army. He made the commitment in Bauchi State during the Combat Arms Training Week 2023. Lieutenant General Yahaya stressed his commitment to building a formidable Nigerian Army that will effectively carry out its constitutional role at all times. Our correspondent Hajara Haliyu reports.
The Chief of Army Staff welcomes the special guest of honor, Governor Bala Muhammad of Bauchi State, to the Combat Arms Training Week 2023, hosted by the Infantry and Armored Corps. He is greeted with a guard of honor. They proceed to the gallery for the opening ceremony for the discus, which centers around capacity building for operational efficiency of the combat arms in a joint environment. The Chief of Army Staff attributes the success of the Army to improved funding and provision of logistics. He hopes to consolidate on the gains.
We will continue to improve Nigerian Army structures and capabilities to defeat emerging threats, and that drive appropriate provision of the required logistics in timely manner, especially in our complex and dynamic security environment, is key to success, in addition, of course, to being proactive and continuously seeking improvements while leveraging on our experiences or lessons learned and the synergy with other services, other security agencies and stakeholders.
Governor Bala Muhammad commends the Army for impartiality during the just concluded elections, as well as the efforts to combat the insurgents in the northeast.
It is to the credit of the armed forces that Boko Haram menace has been substantially brought under control or completely obliterated. I would like to commend Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Muhammadu Buhari, Grand Commander of the Order of the Federal Republic, for providing visionary leadership to transform the Nigerian Army in particular and the military as a whole.
The event also features a book launch titled Lieutenant General Farouk Yahaya, Counter-Terrorism and Counter-Insurgency, Theory Meets Practice. Meanwhile, 12 recipients were presented with the Nigerian Army Armored Shield, among other honors. Hajara Aliyu, Channels Television News.
Governor Darius Ishaku of Taraba State is appealing to medical practitioners across the country to save the health sector from the crisis of manpower shortages by helping to discourage brain drain in the sector. The governor made the appeal of the 63rd Annual General Conference of the Nigerian Medical Association, which held in Jalingo, the Taraba State capital. Meanwhile, the president of the Nigerian Medical Association says doctors will resist every effort to pass the current bill at the National Assembly, proposing to stop doctors from traveling abroad until after 5 years of service in Nigeria.
It's the 63rd Annual General Conference of the Nigerian Medical Association holding in Taraba State, with leading medical practitioners and government officials in attendance. The crux of the conversation centers on understanding medicine and its attendant laws, addressing the menace of substance abuse, as well as how to manage the burden of violence against health workers in the country.
We have collaborated strongly with our affiliates on welfare matters that are peculiar to them. We are almost concluding the agreed review of commerce, which shall take effect from January 1, 2023. Let me once again reassure you that we shall resist all covert and overt attempts to enslave the Nigerian doctor. Nobody will bond you.
The doctors are also requesting improved welfare for their members.
You may consider the implementation of 100% commerce for medical doctors in the state to stand the tide of migration of doctors from state civil service to federal service. You've done greatly in that respect. We are just like Oliver Twist. The more you give us, the more we'll request.
The special guest of honor at this event is the governor of Taraba State. He appeals to the medical doctors to address the challenge of brain drain in the sector.
Our appeal to all of you, for some states like ours that are already starting with the comments, bear with us, be at home here, help to heal your brothers and sisters. Yes, you can go outside. Yes, you can get the money. Yes, you can get the comfort. But I tell you, serving your people will give you a more pleasing, a more long-time satisfaction.
The Nigeria healthcare sector is bedeviled with a myriad of challenges, including shortages of manpower and incessant industrial actions, which have over the years crippled public health services. Hence, the urgent need for a strong collaboration between the government and all stakeholders in the health sector to salvage the situation.
And it's a wrap from Abuja. Back to you, Millicent.
Thanks, Terry. We head to Rivers now, where the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, is calling for more investments in the power sector. He made the call today at the commissioning ceremony of the 240 megawatts AFAM 3 power plant in Oyigbo. The Vice President also reveals that the company has just acquired the Abuja Electricity Distribution Company.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen,
the chairman of Transcorp Group, Tony Elumelu, arrives, and one by one, other dignitaries trickle into the venue. Eventually, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, also arrives. In his opening remarks, the Director General of the Bureau for Public Enterprises lauds the achievements of the group, even as he commends the brains behind the project, urging others to emulate the business mogul, Mr. Elumelu.
I would like to congratulate the chairman of the Transcorp Group, Mr. Tony Elumelu, as we celebrate this milestone achievement in the hope that we can continue to count on your support of the federal government's efforts to transform the power sector in order to achieve sustainable growth and development for our nation.
The Rivers State Governor is represented by the Head of Service, Dr. Rufus Godwins, who conveys the Governor's felicitations.
Coming to do this with barely 3 weeks to the end of the administration is for us a befitting parting gift, which on behalf of the Rivers State Governor, His Excellency Nyesom Wike, I proudly receive. And our people and our government shall treasure this day.
In his remarks, the company's group chairman, Tony Elumelu, expresses his appreciation to the current administration for the support towards actualizing the project.
The Transcorp Group partnership at Okoloma Farm began in November 2020, when we signed the AFAM Power Share Sale and Purchase Agreement at a ceremony presided over by Our Excellency again, the Vice President. The journey has not always been easy, but we have delivered capacity recovery, plant investment, infrastructure improvement, excellent community relationship, and a transformed and motivated Nigerian workforce.
The Vice President has some good news concerning the Transcorp Group.
Only yesterday, the National Council on Privatization
formerly delisted Transcorp Power PLC, formerly known as Ughelli Power PLC, from routine monitoring and evaluation by the BPE, indicating yet another successful power investment. I must say the last few days belong to Transcorp Power, because at the same meeting of the National Council on Privatization, the Council approved the Transcorp Power Consortium as preferred bidder for the acquisition of the Abuja Disco, for the benefit of the nation and to the glory of the Almighty.
In total, there are 3 mobile gas turbines newly installed at the Afam 3 power plant with a power generating capacity of 240 megawatts. The acquisition is at a cost of 105.3 billion naira and has since been delisted by the Bureau of Public Enterprises from the procurement process.
Without which we wouldn't be here today.
Meanwhile, billionaire businessman Femi Otedola has broken his silence about his misgivings regarding the transaction between him and the chairman of Transcorp, Mr. Tony Elumelu. Mr. Otedola, in a statement today, went down memory lane on his business dealings with Mr. Elumelu spanning an 18-year period. According to him, while Mr. Elumelu was managing director of Standard Trust Bank, he had given him $20 million as part of the funds he used to acquire the United Bank for Africa. Mr. Otedola, who later became the chairman of Transcorp Hotel in 2007, also accused Mr. Elumelu of quietly buying the company's shares to his detriment. The statement reads in part, "By the following year, in 2008, I went bankrupt in Nigeria. Tony proceeded to take my shares in UBA to service the interest of my loans, and he also took over my shares in Africa Finance Corporation, where I was the largest shareholder. And that's not all. He also accused the Transcorp chairman of deceiving him to acquire his shares in Transcorp, as well as offering a higher bid for Ughelli Power Plant to outbid him. He says, quote, "I offered to buy Transcorp PLC for 250 billion naira, but unfortunately my offer was rejected. My goal was to maximize the company's potential as a Nigerian conglomerate with a market cap of at least 2 trillion naira instead of the current 40 billion naira, but it seems some shareholders have a different vision." Mr. Otedola, however, says his offer was made with the best intentions for Transcorp PLC and its shareholders, because he saw an opportunity to unlock the company's full potential and create value for everyone involved. He also lamented that stakeholders in Nigerian companies were getting shortchanged by the owners and managers. Mr. Otedola's comments has been generating a lot of reactions within the business community. Sources close to Mr. Elumelu told Channels Television that he is not giving any response to the issues raised by Mr. Otedola for now. To other stories, to tackle the challenges of foreign flows to the country, the Central Bank of Nigeria has launched the 3rd edition of the biannual RT200 Non-Oil Export Summit in Lagos, southwest Nigeria. According to the Central Bank Governor, Mr. Godwin Emefiele, the summit provides an opportunity for participants to synergize and proffer solutions for the benefit of Nigeria.
Central Bank Governor, members of the Bankers Committee, as well as other high-level stakeholders are here in Lagos, southwest Nigeria for the 3rd edition of the biannual RT200 Non-Oil Export Summit.
I am saying this because
a cardinal pillar of the RT200 FX program launched in February 2022 by the Central Bank to tackle the challenges of foreign flows to the country through boosting non-oil sector capacity.
When he started this project, he had 3 projects in one.
15 months after its introduction, the CBN governor provides an update on the RT200 program.
Available data shows that repatriation due to the program increased by 40% from $3 billion in 2021 to $5.6 billion at the end of 2022. In the first quarter of 2023, a total of $1.7 billion was repatriated to the economy, while about $970 million was sold into the I&E window year to date.
Now the central bank is taking a hard stance on shipping companies with undocumented export cargo.
The central bank will be beaming some searchlights on undocumented exports. And we had advised the shipping lines at that meeting that we would also be monitoring, and if we find that they export cargoes without documentation, that we will penalize them, including placing their accounts on PND, post no debit, and I'm sure we all know what post no debit means.
Meanwhile, the CBN encourages all exporters to take advantage of the loan facilities available through local banks aimed at sourcing export proceeds to benefit the economy. However, there are some reservations over the provision of more funds to create value in the non-oil sector.
We have seen that our exporters, some of them needed help to be helped with the importers on the other side. And we also had quality issues. People export things to the UK and then they get sent back to them and they lose money. So we made sure that we held the FITC, and the essence was to get the regulators and the quality control people from the UK government to come to our expo and explain to our exporters.
In light of the successes recorded so far, the general consensus at the summit seems to be that more has to be done to raise more export earnings for the country.
Thank you very much.
Business News is next. Here's Anne Waldo.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thank you, Millicent. Hello and welcome to Business News. We begin with the Central Bank of Nigeria releasing a guideline banning representative officers of foreign banks from engaging in banking business across the country. Well, according to the statement from its Financial Policy and Regulation Department, the Financial Market Regulator says the guidelines were issued based on its mandate to promote financial system stability in the industry. The CBN explains that the guideline further restricts them from engaging directly in any financial transaction except for those related to marketing the products and the services of its foreign parent or an affiliate of the foreign parent licensed and domiciled outside Nigeria. The Senate has confirmed the appointment of Abdul Hakim Mobolaji as the chairman of the governing board of the Nigerian Deposit Insurance Corporation, the NDIC, representing Southwest. This follows the adoption of the report of Senate Committee on Banking, Insurance and Other Financial Institutions at plenary held today. 6 other members confirmed on the NDIC board by the Senate include Osita Obu for Southeast, Omar Gambo Jibrin for North Central, Mohammed Haruna for Northeast, Yasmin Delhatu for Southwest, Simon Ogie for South-South, and Abimbola Olashuri for Southwest. 2 locally listed telecom giants, that's MTN and Airtel Nigeria, say they have their 2,100 megahertz spectrum 3G mobile service license renewed with the Nigerian Telecommunications Commission, which first launched in 2007. The statement from MTN Nigeria says the company renewed its spectrum license for the sum of 56.6 billion naira for the period of 15 years, while Airtel Nigeria says it made a payment of 58.7 billion naira to the NCC for the same period. With this development, both telcos will not be shutting down the 3G service in the country, which has been the case in some parts of the world, following the global expansion of 5G network service. Meanwhile, MTN Nigeria says it has secured the approval of the Nigerian Communications Commission to lease the NATCOM Development and Investment Limited spectrum, which covers 19 states. The Federal High Court sitting in Abuja has ordered Seplat Energy Holdings to hold its annual general meeting tomorrow, May the 10th at 11 a.m. This was made known in a notice sent to the Nigerian Exchange Limited. The judgment, which is the final and binding further, restrains any current or former directors, shareholders and officers of the company from cancelling or postponing the AGM as announced to the public. The company debunked the media report
that the Federal High Court in Abuja had restrained the company from holding its 2023 annual general meeting. It's another win for the domestic market. It rose slightly today at the close of trading. John Mekwa tells us more.
Thank you so much. Welcome to the stock market report. Profit taking may have started creeping into the NGX as the all-share index shed off some of its gains from Monday's trade to close at 0.05%. And it's at 52,606.51. Market cap is still on to 28 trillion naira. Well, it's a marginal gain, but we still hear the bellow of the bull. Investors sustain interest on 3 of the figures has kept the banking counter in the green, even better than Monday. Remember yesterday it was at 0.6%. Today it's 0.76%, looking good. But guess what is even doing even better? It's oil and gas, more than 1% in the green at the close of trade. Consumer, however, has lost out of that. It's now in the red, 0.73%. Now, although 3 of the top figures are still leading the top trades for today, Accessco is, however, on a downside today because it shed 15 kobo to close at 11 naira 40 kobo, but UBA and FBN Holdings are still looking good after this trade. So it's a sustained one, but it's looking like we're getting to the edge of the cliff. I hope we can sustain this till tomorrow. That's a stock market report. Back to you, Anne.
Thank you, anyway. We'll see if that can be sustained tomorrow. Let's take a look at closing figures from other major markets around the world. And that's business news for tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Anne Nwawadu. Millicent will be back with the rest of the news at 10.
Banking so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thank you, Anne. Just before we bring you international stories, the Senate has today set up an ad hoc committee to investigate the Niger Delta Development Commission for failing to submit its budget estimates for 2021 and 2022 to the National Assembly, as all money spent by the Commission for the fiscal years are illegal. This followed the presentation of a report by the chairman of the Committee on Niger Delta, Senator Amos Killer-Wangs, for the Senate to consider the budgets for approval. However, senators called the move unconstitutional and insisted an investigation must be carried out to ascertain why the Commission was just bringing its past budgets for approval. The committee, whose chairman is Senator Yusuf and members, Senators Olubunmi Adetumbi, Uche Kunife, Abdullahi Yahya, Henry Siriake Dixon, has 1 week to investigate the matter and report back to the Senate within a week.
We set up a committee, ad hoc committee, to investigate what happened in terms of expenditures, illegal expenditures done for 2021, 2022, and even 2023. Who approved the funds? How much? What projects? Technically, we don't even have budgets for 2021 and 2022. Technically, we don't have. But that, in fact, is the main reason why we should even investigate it. And the idea of investigation is to look at what happened, how can we prevent recurrence in the future. This is one institution that is supposed to be run perfectly because it's an intervention to salvage situations of people who are in distress. So if that is the view of the Senate, we can set up another committee because we are supposed to correct this anomaly one way or the other. It shouldn't continue.
And former U.S. President Donald Trump has been found guilty by a jury of 9 for sexually abusing a female writer, Jean Carroll, in the 1990s. At the very least, it is another historic first for a former president who already has 1 criminal indictment and possibly others to come. However, Mr. Trump is said to be ready to move forward as he is set to fight this on appeal. Here's Simon Pusey with this and other international stories and around the world in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the channel's studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. President Vladimir Putin has told Moscow's Victory Day parade that the world is at a turning point with a real war being waged against Russia.
Уважаемые граждане России, битвы. In a
speech, Mr. Putin said Russia wanted a peaceful future and blamed the West for sowing seeds of hatred and Russophobia. A slimmed-down Victory Day parade in the capital saw only 51 vehicles taking part. This is substantially down on last year when 131 vehicles took part. Russia holds military parades on May the 9th every year to commemorate the Soviet Union's victory in the Great War against Nazi Germany. Meanwhile, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen is in Kyiv for talks with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky after a new wave of Russian airstrikes. Zelensky spoke of a need for faster deliveries of ammunition from the EU, but emphasized that every success it has in defeating Russian attacks are proof we can win over this aggressor. Meanwhile, von der Leyen described Kyiv as the beating heart of European values, stating that Ukraine is fighting for the ideals of Europe that are celebrated today.
Because they are afraid of the success you represent and the example you show. And they are afraid of your path to the European Union. But the aggressor has already dramatically failed. Ukraine has resisted the attack and is fighting back successfully. And why that? First and foremost, because as a free society, Ukraine can count on the unquenchable bravery of its million women and men.
The former Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan has been arrested outside the High Court in the capital Islamabad. Mr. Khan was appearing in court on charges of corruption, which he says are politically motivated. Footage showed paramilitary forces in armoured personnel carriers detaining Mr. Khan after he entered the court compound before driving him away. He was ousted as Prime Minister in April last year and has been campaigning for early elections since then. General elections are due to be held later this year. Dozens of supporters blocked streets in Lahore in response, while protesters also blocked a major road in the port city of Karachi. According to an internal UN estimate, 5 million additional people in Sudan will require emergency assistance, half of them children. By October, some 860,000 people are expected to flee to neighbouring countries including Chad, placing additional strain on nations already facing some of the world's most undefended humanitarian crises. Analysis of UN funding data for Africa shows financial support from key donor governments is dropping off. Airstrikes and ground battles are continuing in the capital Khartoum. Entire neighbourhoods have become empty as residents flee their homes. A barge leased by the British government to house 500 migrants has arrived in southwest England for refitting before it is put to use. The Bibby Stockholm arrived early in the morning in Falmouth before it is ready for use this summer. Rishi Sunak's government has made cracking down on illegal migration one of his top priorities. The vessel will eventually be berthed in Portland Port in Dorset and will accommodate 500 single adult males. And members of Palestine Trauma Centre UK have dressed up as clowns to play, dance and sing with children, offering them laughs and relief. children in the Gaza Strip are among a high number of young people showing signs of trauma and severe emotional stress as a result of various wars with Israel. Therapy and trauma relief sessions were also offered to those in need of them. And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Thanks, Simon. It's now time for sports news. Here's Kelly Egiga.
Thanks, Millicent. Hello and welcome to Sports News. We begin with the clash of titans in the UEFA Champions League as Manchester City have taken a 1-0 draw against title holders Real Madrid back to the Etihad after Kevin De Bruyne and Vinicius Jr. both scored stunners. Now, Real Madrid had the first moment of magic as Vinicius unleashed a thunderbolt from almost 30 yards that flew past goalkeeper Ederson and gave the hosts the lead. But just as Vinicius had done in the first half, Manchester City scored against the run of play as Kevin De Bruyne's sweet strike from the edge of the box pulled them level. And away from the Champions League, Lionel Messi's father has shut down claims his son has agreed to leave Paris Saint-Germain this summer and sign a big money deal with Saudi Arabia club. Messi's father, George, released a statement after reports earlier in the day suggested the forward would sign a massive contract worth £522 million at the Saudi side Al Hilal. George took to social media to announce, quote, there is absolutely nothing with any club for next year. The decision, he says, will never be made before Lionel finished the league with PSG. Away from France, Arsenal are hoping to announce Bukayo Saka's new contract before the end of the Premier League season. The England forward has been in talks with the club since last year, but he is committed to signing a new deal, which could now be sealed before the summer break. Saka has played a pivotal role in the Gunners' title challenge this season and is the only Premier League player to reach double figures for goals and assists. Let's stay in the Premier League as Wolverhampton Wanderers have been charged by the Football Association for failing to control fans at a match disrupted by discriminatory chants. Now, 3 arrests were made for alleged discriminatory chanting when Wolves defeated Chelsea last month. The club has until Monday, May 15th to respond. And finally, a Texas therapist faces up to 10 years in prison after pleading guilty to supplying performance-enhancing drugs to Olympic athletes, including banned Nigerian sprinter Blessing Okabari. U.S. authorities say Eric Lira, a naturopathic therapist, is the first individual to be convicted under a new law introduced in the wake of Russia's state-backed Olympic doping scandals. Lira was found to have supplied drugs to Okagwari in the build-up to the Tokyo Olympics in 2021. Okagwari was subsequently banned from the sports for 10 years. And that's Sports News Tonight. I am Kelly Egiga. It's back to Millicent.
Thanks, Kelly. And the main news again. The Supreme Court today, in a unanimous decision, affirmed Ademola Adeleke as validly elected governor of Osun State. President Muhammadu Buhari, in his reaction to the judgment, charged residents of the state to support Governor Adeleke towards actualizing his plans and aspirations for the state. On the second day, the Presidential Election Tribunal, the All Progressives Congress and President-elect asked the tribunal to dismiss the petitions filed by the APM and the PDP as the tribunal adjourned pre-hearing for both petitions till May 11. Also today, Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo called for more investment in the power sector as he commissioned the 240 megawatt AFAM 3 project in River State. And Russian President Vladimir Putin today said Russia's future rests on the soldiers fighting in Ukraine during his speech to mark Victory Day in Moscow.